Another friend told me there's
take everybody's advice to yeah, the clinic seems if it's
They've been great supporting. Everyone has hard times. Work has been slow. Now rent is part of
I mean, she's
landlords are not demanding. You know that you're not getting there. Landlord is threatening to throw you into the
it's part of the
from Germany.
I'm sure if you have
My parents in the office.
nice to have
My people went to Hamburg. People went to Hamburg or Rotterdam. That was 36.
Whatever general industry was area they came from, the area they went to.
I'm not paying all my money like that, so well, how about you put it half filled up?
Right.
It says put it half filled up. So how about you put it half
You don't have a shipping, you don't have what shipping.
So you're saying
Let's go to
what's going on in Germany and in that area it's right in the area they went to. Give you a little bit of background. You might be able to do a little speculation.
Well, there aren't that many ports. There's a piece of Russia that's St. Catherine or Catherine. Even today, it's separate from the rest of Russia. So, other countries around. It's like some very strange thing, like Belarus or something is surrounded, or Poland is on one side, and so there's this little place where you have water ports, and then there's other countries, and then the rest of the Russians over here. So that's probably around there's ports there. But you have like Lithuania and Latvia and stuff like that.
I would stay in the shadows and go and try and catch the fish myself.
I know something about that. She looked at the one that we had across the and I know that I think one or two of them we have the ship manifest, and I don't know how my sister found them. She might know how my sister found
You on money with a few friends. They've been great supporting you. Everyone has
they didn't know. And they found it.
Now rent is low. You don't feel comfortable asking your friends to give you allowance. Your landlord keeps not going to demand the rent. You know you're not getting a fair deal. The landlord is threatening to throw you and all your belongings out on the street the day after tomorrow.
You have the census, right?
Never mind the roof is
So I'm online.
more on
You get on the census.
you see a sign in Spanish about organizing the house. It talks about tenants' rights. Your friend says he wants to go to the meeting. He wants to go to the meeting. You're not sure if you have rights since you don't have
And that was in the census.
Would you like your name to be Teresa's subscriber? It'd be nice to have you not have to be homeless.
Well, you know what happens on campus. I don't think we have a choice. You can relate to it.
Why not?
I think we've been through every page.
Okay, you said to go to the community meeting, maybe someone should do something about that landlord. Community meeting, you realize that you're not alone, that many other people are in the same boat as you. Many of the other organizers are Latinos, many are people who don't have papers like you. One of them knows someone who's renting an apartment in a much better building. He can put you in a good word for you. They talk about reclaiming their neighborhood. They talk about how this neighborhood used to be one of the strongest immigrant neighborhoods in the city. And ever since the white immigrants were moved to the suburbs, the city government completely cut funding to local schools and services. Is there any wonder why there's so much crime? The meeting leaders talk a lot about the system. You start to wonder if maybe the rules just aren't fair. If there isn't something bigger than yourself to be done. Maybe it isn't your fault. Community organizers talk about a rally outside City Hall to protest the most recent cutbacks in the community and policing program by average cutbacks that affect the immigrant community first and foremost.
That's my
Folks had the opportunity to get pretty much through a lot of trials and tribulations. Okay, so let me just ask, before we go on to the next segment where we actually have some folks who come over here fairly recently to talk about this story, what were some reactions to some of the different things that the family had to go through, both before emigrating and after coming to America? Yeah.
Well, first of all, the choices are all bad. And it seems no matter what choice you make, the next choice will also be bad. You just see it coming, but you don't know what it's going to be.
And here, I mean, you saw, I don't know if you got to the page about you decided to go to talk to the police, which most people probably wouldn't do, but then they said that it happens to be that Newark is a city where the council's passed a resolution that the police can't ask you about immigration. I don't know if that's accurate in most places, though. And, you know, you're probably pretty terrified to go to the police if something bad happens. Any other thoughts about some of the things that happen? Again, either in the old country or once you get here. Yeah.
When NAFTA was created, the economists understood that in doing that, they would put a lot of farmers in Latin America out of work because they were going to flood the country with low-cost corn, which we subsidize, and decided to go to mechanized farms that are much more efficient than the small farms.
We're in here cooking syrup.
So we knew that we were going to displace farmers, and then we get upset when they come here because they have no place, no way to earn money. These are unskilled laborers. At least my ancestors who came here had certain skills. They could pretty quickly get a job at a department store. You know, what's a peasant farmer to? You know, we don't need much farm labor in this country. So we kind of created our own nightmare here with immigration.
Jim?
I think it was through every situation, you just didn't know what your rights were. Like, you didn't know what was safe and what wasn't safe. It just struck me like you have to make all these really monumental decisions and momentous decisions without information about what the repercussions could be. Like, you don't know if you can go to the police. You don't know if you can show your face at a rally because you don't have papers. And I think that sense of like, I mean, I'm a U.S. citizen. I have no idea what the rights of somebody who's in this country are. You know, can you talk to your landlord? Can you talk to your, do you have any recourse against your boss? I mean, like, those things, you have no, like, I have no idea. I'm like, I'm a well-educated person, like, but I have no idea what people's rights are. And it feels like it's, like, kept deliberately ambiguous.
Let me, before I get to it, let me pass along something about that you all may be interested and may not know. I happen to be the president of the Connecticut affiliate of the American Civil Liberties Union, and one of the things that we do is take a very active role with immigration issues. And immigrants do have, once they step foot in this country, the same constitutional rights. However, once somebody is stopped and detained by the immigration authorities, the immigration process is not a criminal process. As a result, there is no constitutional right, for example, to a lawyer. We have come across situations where someone will have been kept in the immigration process, detained, separated from their family, not allowed any phone calls, not allowed any contact with anybody, for 4 or 5 years. And it's brought to the attention of the ACLU by a judge, by a federal judge, when they finally bring the person to the court for deportation. At that point, we will often get calls from the federal judge saying, this has happened. The clerk will say, the judge wants you to handle this. But that's one of the problems, is that even though they have constitutional rights, the constitutional rights are limited to certain situations which are defined out of some of the immigration proceedings. So it's something that a lot of people don't realize, and it's pretty terrifying. Other thoughts? Yeah?
So we should make it clear that Connecticut passed laws in the last 2 years that say that, like Newark is a sanctuary city, Connecticut is a sanctuary state. So a person who was robbed could go to the police, and the police would not call the immigration service. They would try and solve the problem. It helps the police do their job, and it keeps
a little bit later in the program, Jose will give us
Could you repeat what she said?
Yeah, what she said is, in Connecticut, there's a law that protects you. You can't go to the police. The police are not to contact the immigration authorities. You're not to be deported because you take advantage of the police protections, here. And various states have passed various measures, various communities have passed various measures. Jose will talk a little bit about sort of the whole panoply of protections and where there are still danger areas, and then sort of what are the issues on the horizon, both in Connecticut and nationally.
I have a suggestion that whoever speaks introduces themselves and has the mic because we can't hear.
Is there some way to increase the volume of this? Because when someone over there talks, can't hear it.
Let's pass them.
Yeah, I mean.
But even you're quiet, you have trouble hearing you, can you increase the volume?
There was a incident in the story where they kept a waiting line for immigration visa, legal visa, was 8 or 9 years, or was it longer than that? 12 years. Well, we know of an actual case where the family applied in Bangladesh to come to this country, and their son, their oldest son, was 12 years old. So they went through the process, and about 9 years later, they got the visa. The only problem was that their son was now 21 plus a few months. And if you're that old, you can't come in with your family as a child. So he had to be left behind. He's still waiting. He's now 29 years old. He's reapplied, papers have been lost. But it's a pretty crazy system. It's breaking up families. Some of us may have, personal experiences of a family member when my family came here in the early 1900s, that a family member might have been turned away. In those days, about the only reason was serious illness, or if you were an anarchist or a polygamist. Those are the questions.
Okay, any other general comments of that? What we'll do is have we'll get some folks to tell some stories of sort of recently coming to America and what it's taken, what kinds of things they're faced. Do you want to come on?
Thank you. So, if I'm not loud enough, please let me know. Appreciate it. My name is Mariano Cardoso. I live in New Britain. I'm a student at Central Connecticut State University, and I'm studying civil engineering. And so I'll tell a little bit about my story. And so I came to the United States with my parents when I was about 22 months old. So I was born in Tehuizingo, Puebla, and this was 1988. And at that time, things weren't really looking too good in where we lived in Puebla, and especially in the part of the state where we lived. And so my dad, he decided that after getting out of the military there, that he would bring my mom and me to New York, where an uncle was living. And so there was really no way he knew that the chances of him getting a visa or anything, any way to do it legally was really no chance. He didn't have the money, and so he knew it, but he had, since we had family here, they got a lot of help, and they helped him find a coyote, basically a smuggler, to get him across into California. And it took him about 4 days of walking in the desert. This was February 1990. And so they reached San Diego after 4 days, and once there, the coyote brought them to New York. So they drove across the country, and luckily they made it safe. And I was told by my parents that I was smart enough to carry the whole way, so I wasn't really much of a problem. And And so we reached New York, and we lived there for 10 years. And so I started kindergarten there, and so I went to elementary school there in the Bronx. And I remember since then, that's when I started to notice that I really enjoyed math, and that I just liked it, especially because it was the farthest thing away from writing, and writing wasn't for me. And numbers, they were just so simple. There was always an answer, even. So it was something I really enjoyed. When I went to middle school, I remember I started doing algebra. And the first time I was learning about the x variable, and the teacher, he solved for 2 x's on both sides of the equal sign, and that was like magic. Like how did he do that? And then again in calculus, even though I was mostly lost, but just that feeling, it was amazing. And so I knew that I wanted to do something with that, since I enjoyed math so much. Maybe math teacher, and if I was so good at math and enjoyed it, maybe an engineer. And so I graduated high school, and unfortunately, all through middle school, high school, I kept thinking that I know I'm undocumented, and it really has never fazed me. It really has never scared me, and I knew that there was hope, because it was obvious to me that being undocumented, like who wouldn't want anyone to be educated, to be in the United States and work and really contribute to the community. And so I was thinking, by the time I'm 18, I don't know how, but by the time I'm 18 and before I graduated high school, that something is going to change with immigration, that the laws are going to change, and somehow, magically, they're just going to fix themselves. And I always kept that in the back of my mind, and in high school I was very shy. I was very, I don't know, I just wasn't a people person, I guess. And so I don't like to say it was because I had this thing where I had to hide that I was undocumented. I didn't have any papers, that some people thought that I didn't belong here. And so I didn't really ask for help when applying for colleges. And so I knew that I didn't have the best grades, but I had good grades. I didn't get an F. And I really thought I got good grades, I don't know, to go to college. But so the last months were approaching of my senior year in high school, and no law had passed, so I was still undocumented. And I didn't really ask anyone for help. I remember I went to my guidance counselor, but I didn't trust him enough to tell him that I was undocumented. So I didn't really ask for his help. And one of the ladies that was in the career department, she helped me. I told her I like math, and she told me, you should be an engineer. And I looked at her like, no, that's really? And so she told me about a program at a community college in Hartford, Capital Community College. And so I looked into it, and she helped me out. And I knew I wasn't going to get into any four-year universities, but this was still a really good option for me, for not having any scholarships, any financial aid, and it was affordable. And so, thanks to her, really, I applied, and so I went to Capital, and about 2 years, 2 years after I had gone in, I graduated high school in 2006, and in August 2008, I was in my uncle's house, and my whole family was there, except my parents. my uncles, aunts, some cousins, my brother and sister, and we were all outside, and this was 2 days before my semester started. Remember I was going to start taking calculus. So I was excited, and I was going to go the next day, get my books, and get prepared. And so it was August 26, 2008. It was a Tuesday. And I was in my uncle's house, and I was playing soccer, and I was out of breath. Maybe my adrenaline was running a bit too high. And at that time, I saw 7 police officers walking in through the driveway. We're all in the backyard, and 2 of them were dressed as police officers. The other were civilian clad, and I knew they were officers because they had their badges and their buckles. So I assumed they were all police officers, Liberal police officers. I saw the patrol car was in the street, and so I thought something's going on around here. And so one of the civilian clad asked the family if they could go in to check inside the house, because they had gotten a notice that there was someone affiliated with drugs that was in the neighborhood. And so I knew that in order for police officers to go inside anyone's house, they needed a warrant, some type of legal work. And so I asked them, do you have any type of warrant, search warrant? And they said no. They said, no, this is for your safety. Like, well, we're here, and it's like, no one is inside the house. And they persisted. So for about 20 minutes, they kept persisting. And at one point, I don't know if it was because my adrenaline was still too high, but 5 of them circled around me. And so I asked them, very anxious, why does it seem like, why are you circling around me? Are you trying to hustle me? I guess they didn't like that. And so after a minute or 2 after that, they just got fed up with it. And they put all the men on one side of the house, outside. And we got on our knees. They asked us to get on our knees and put handcuffs. They put handcuffs. And on the other side, where we couldn't see, was the rest of the family. And so this was my uncle, my cousin, 2 cousins, and me. And they asked for our fingerprints, they asked for our names, IDs, and date of births. And I was still thinking, it's a big misunderstanding. I don't have a criminal record. None of my family does. And so we gave them everything, and finally they took a cousin, me, and my uncle inside a white, unmarked minivan. And as we were driving away, I asked them, are we going downtown? I asked them jokingly. And they looked at each other. And then they looked back at me. They're like, no, we're from immigration. And I just thought, wow, this is it. This is the end. And so this is it. Everything I had. My biggest fear was coming true. It was the worst feeling I've ever had. And so that day, that afternoon, they took us to a Hartford holding cell where we spent the night. And at that time, while they were interrogating us and getting our information, they went to the address I gave them where I lived, and they went to go get my dad, who already had he had a self-deportation, and so they apprehended him. They waited for him after work. I remember he told me they barely let him park his truck before they took him away. And so that night I spent in that Hartford holding cell with my dad and my cousin. And so things kept getting worse. And I was just thinking, I'm never gonna see my friends, I'm never gonna see any of this anymore. And the next day, they took us to the Hartford immigration office. So that's where they basically got our information and told us what laws we had broken or whatnot. So they told us we entered without inspection, and that we would have to see a judge, and that was for me and my cousin. For my dad, since he already had a deportation case, he was just going to get sent to Greenfield, Massachusetts for a few days, and from there he would get on the next plane and be deported back. And so that night they took my cousin and me to Central Falls, Rhode Island, a facility that's not there. It was called Donald White. It was a federal prison. And so that's where I spent almost 2 weeks. And luckily for my dad, my mom and a few other uncles, they helped me get an attorney. They helped him get an attorney and basically stopped his deportation. And so after 2 weeks, we were let out. And about 2 years later, I got a letter saying a whole bunch of stuff. It was from immigration, and it was mostly filled with jargon, things I couldn't understand. But I understood this one part that said, you have 30 days to reappeal or you would be deported. And this time it was worse because it was in written form. This was it. There was no way out of getting out of this one. Once there's a warrant, or once there's a deportation on you, that's it. There's no way that you can save yourself. And so I told one of my advisors at Capitol, and he told me, I don't know what we can do, but I'll help you. We can figure it out. And I just looked at him like, there's no way. This is it. His name was Carlos. This is it. There's no way that I can get out of this one. So he got me in contact with an organization in Trinity College in Hartford. Stopped the raids, and soon after that, it was like a jigsaw puzzle. Like things just started piecing together, because they got me in contact with a group that was just forming here in Connecticut, Connecticut Students for a Dream, and they got me in contact with national organizations for undocumented immigrants, called United We Dream, and so it was all